I'm hungry, mommy. Please help me. Help me, I am hungry. I don't know what to do. I'm so hungry. I feel like I would die. Please help me. Please give me food, just something, anything. His tears dropped into the plate as he clutched it with both hands. 7-year-old Patrick whispered these words through trembling lips as he sat on the bare floor of the small dark store behind the house. The room was filled with old buckets, dusty clothes, and torn bags. But to him, it was his only safe place. His little eyes were red and swollen from crying. His ribs pushed out from his chest like sharp sticks, and his stomach growled louder with each passing second. It had been almost 2 days since he last ate anything. Every time he swallowed, it felt like he was swallowing fire. But the worst pain wasn't in his body, it was in his heart. The pain of being forgotten since his mother died 3 months ago. Life had become a daily nightmare. His father had remarried quickly, and Madame Sandra, his new stepmother, moved in with her 2 children. From the very first day, Patrick knew he was no longer welcome. What he didn't know was how deep and cruel the pain would go. Madame Sandra treated him like a pest. Every morning she would serve her 2 children large plates of steaming hot food, fried eggs, and sweet drinks. But when it came to Patrick, she would pretend he wasn't there. Even if he greeted her, she would hiss and walk past him. If he asked for food, she would beat him with a broomstick and call him names like useless boy or bastard. His father hardly said a word. He just sat in silence, glued to his phone or lost in thought. At first, Patrick tried to understand. Maybe his father was also hurting from the loss of his mother. Maybe he just didn't notice what was happening. But one day, after seeing the bruises on his back from Madame Sandra's beating, his father looked at him, sighed, and said coldly, "Just do whatever she says, don't cause trouble." That was the moment Patrick felt his heart break for the second time. He wasn't just motherless. Every day after school, while other children ran home to warm meals and open arms, Patrick would walk slowly, dragging his feet like a child on his way to punishment. When he reached the house, his step-siblings would be playing with toys, laughing and watching cartoons in the living room. If he tried to sit near them or even peep through the door, they would shout, "Go away, you smell," and push him out. Sometimes they poured water on the floor and told him to clean it while they watched him and laughed. Once his stepbrother even kicked his food bowl away when he thought Patrick might get some left over. His only friends were the shadows in the small store. At night, he would curl up on the floor with a torn wrapper and talk to the photo of his late mother he had hidden in an old biscuit tin. "Mommy, I miss you. They don't want me here. I am hungry. I am so hungry." But there was never an answer, just silence, painful silence. Something strange happened one afternoon. It was around 3 p.m. The sun was hot and the house was quiet. The generator wasn't on, and Madame Sandra had taken her children out. Patrick didn't eat for the day. His stomach was squeezing itself, his head spinning. He was so weak he could barely work. He took a small plastic plate, the one he used to eat from when his mother was alive, and slowly walked to the small inner room where his mother used to sleep. Dust covered everything and cobwebs danced in the corners. Her framed picture still hung on the wall, her face calm, smiling. That smile, oh, how he missed it. Tears rushed to his eyes as he knelt before the picture and whispered, "Mommy, I don't know what to do. I'm so hungry. I feel like I would die. Please help me. Please give me food. Just something, anything." Then something happened that no one could explain. As he kept crying, head bowed and eyes shut, he felt the plate grow warm in his hands. He opened his eyes slowly and gasped. The plate was full, white rice, fresh steaming rice with piece of meat on top. The smell filled the room like a breeze from heaven. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He dropped the plate on the floor with a loud clatter and stumbled backward, heart beating faster. "What is this? Am I dreaming?" he whispered. His legs were shaking, his hands trembling. The tears that now rolled down his eyes were not from sadness, but fear, shock, and confusion. He looked at the picture again, his mother's smile. Was it the same as before, or was it wider, brighter? He didn't know, he didn't understand what just happened, but one thing was clear, something had answered his cry. Patrick sat there frozen, his eyes fixed on the plate of steaming white rice that had suddenly appeared before him. The aroma filled the room, and for a second he thought he was dreaming. His heart raced, his mouth fell open. Is this real? He whispered to himself. He looked again at the portrait of his late mother on the wall. Her smile still gentle, her eyes still warm, like she was watching him. His hands trembled as he reached out and slowly grabbed the plate. His chest rose and fell with fear and hunger, but hunger was stronger. With slow steps, he moved to the center of the dusty floor and sat cross-legged. His eyes never left his mother's picture. "Thank you, Mommy," he whispered as tears rolled down his cheeks. Then he started eating, first slowly, then faster. His hands became wild. He stuffed the rice into his mouth like his life depended on it. He didn't even chew properly. If every bite was like medicine to his weak body. He ate and ate until the plate was empty. Not a single grain remained. When he was done, he leaned back and placed the empty plate beside him. His small stomach had stretched and was now round and full. He lay down there on the cold floor, let out a tired sigh, and drifted into sleep. Deep, peaceful sleep, the kind he hadn't had. But peace never lasted long in Patrick's world. A few hours later, sharp slaps landed on his cheek. 1, 2, 3. He woke up with a loud cry, confused and scared. Standing above him was Madame Sandra, his stepmother. Her eyes full of anger, her hands were raised again. Behind her, his two step-siblings were laughing loudly, pointing at him like he was a mad person. "You, this useless boy," Madame Sandra shouted. "Who gave you food? Where did you get rice to eat?" Patrick looked around, confused. The plate was still there on the floor. He began to stammer, his lips quivered. His body shook, his face was still swollen from sleep. "Answer me, idiot," she screamed, dragging him by the ear. "Who gave you rice?" Patrick's lip trembled as he pointed slowly at his mother's portrait. It was my mommy," he said, almost in a whisper. At first, there was silence. Then the room erupted in laughter, loud, cruel laughter. His step-siblings laughed so hard they fell on each other. "His dead mother cooked rice for him," they shouted. Madame Sandra's laughter was the loudest. She bent over, bending her stomach. "So now ghosts are feeding you. You are not only useless but mad," she yelled. But suddenly her face turned cold again. "Come and show me where you stole the food from," she shouted, grabbing him by the ear and dragging him towards the kitchen. "I didn't steal it. I didn't. Mommy gave me," Patrick kept repeating, tears falling from his eyes. "Lie again and I will blind you today," she screamed. They got to the kitchen. No pot of rice, nothing cooked. The cupboard was locked just as she left it. The fridge was empty. There was no trace of rice anywhere. That made her even angrier. "So you're using tricks now, Abby? Spiritual rice. You're becoming a thief and a liar." Without another word, she picked up a long broomstick and began to flog him. 1 stroke, 2, 3, 10. Patrick screamed, begged and cried, "Please, please, I didn't steal." But it didn't matter. His back burned, his arms shook, his legs gave way. Still, she beat him until her eyes were tired. Then she pushed him back into the store and slammed the door. His step-siblings were still laughing as they returned to the living room. "Ghost boy," they called him, "hungry thief." That night, the house was quiet, but Patrick's heart was loud. He curled himself up on the floor, hugging his knee. The rice he had eaten earlier still sat in his stomach, but now it hurt. Not because of the food, but because of the beating, the shame, and the loneliness. He buried his face in his small body, shaking with pain. "Mommy," he sobbed, "please take me with you. I am tired." His voice faded as he cried and cried. Unknown to him, someone was there, a gentle presence, standing silently in the corner of the room. His mother. Her spirit stood by the wall right beside her portrait, watching her little boy with a heart full of sorrow. She couldn't touch him. She couldn't wipe his tears, but her soul ached. Her eyes glittered. Her hands were folded over her chest. If she would speak, she would have. "My son, I am here. I never left you." But Patrick couldn't see her. He couldn't hear her. he only felt pain. Outside the store, life went on. The television was loud in the living room. Laughter echoed from his step-sibling as they watched cartoons and chewed meat pies. Madame Sandra sipped her mulled drink like nothing happened. But in the little store, a boy cried himself to sleep on the floor, hugging an empty plate beside a ghost no one else could see. It was a Saturday morning. The sun had not yet risen fully, but Patrick was already awake, cleaning the compound and washing plates like he was told. His small fingers moved fast, his legs were tired, but there was something different about this morning. There was electricity, and that meant something very special to him: cartoon. His step-siblings, Zeno and Fola, loved cartoons. Every Saturday morning, they would sit in the living room, laughing loudly at the funny characters on the TV. Patrick always listened from the storeroom where he slept, imagining the colors, the laughter, the fun. Today, he told himself, maybe, just maybe, they will allow me to join them. So he worked hard. He washed the place carefully, swept the backyard, packed the trash, and even arranged the firewood behind the kitchen. Everything his stepmother usually asked him to do. He didn't want to give her any reason to shout at him. His heart was beating fast with hope. If I finish early, he thought, I can laugh too today. When he finished, he tiptoed to the living room. Laughter echoed from the inside. His step-siblings were rolling on the couch, kicking their legs in the air. So funny, Zeno shouted. Replay it again, Fola said, almost choking with laughter. Patrick smiled slowly. It was a nervous smile, the kind that showed more fear than joy. He didn't want to be shouted at. Carefully, he opened the door and crept in. His small legs bent as he sat on the floor, far away from them. He kept his head down, ears wide open. The cartoon was even funnier than he had imagined. But peace does not last long in the life of a child like Patrick. Ow, why is he here? Fola said suddenly, holding his nose. He smelled, Zeno added, crunching his face. Patrick really turned his head. Please, he begged gently. I won't stay close. I just want to watch. I'll finish my work, please. His voice shook. His eyes were already watering. He just wanted to feel like a child again, even if for 5 minutes. But Zeno stood up and walked towards him. I said leave. You're not one of us, she shouted and pushed him hard. He fell on the floor with a thud. He didn't argue, he didn't shout. He simply stood up and walked out slowly, tears already wetting his cheeks. He went into the small storeroom where he stayed. He sat on the same dusty floor and looked up at the mother's portrait again. The same soft smile, the same kind eyes. Mommy, he said, wiping his nose. Why did you leave me here? Why didn't you take me with you? His voice broke into sobs. They hate me, Mommy. They hate me so much. I didn't do anything wrong. He talked and cried, holding his knees tightly. I just want to watch cartoons. Just cartoons, Mommy. Is that too much? Suddenly, a loud voice came from outside. Patrick, his stepmother screamed. He jumped off in fear and ran outside. Yes, ma, he answered. Go and arrange the yam in the back store and make sure you don't break any. She shouted from the kitchen, banging a pot. Yes, ma, he replied and ran up quickly. He didn't want more trouble. After putting the yams in order and clearing the broken wood at the back, he wiped his sweaty face with his shirt. The sun was high already. He hadn't eaten, not even water had touched his lips. His stomach was empty again. He walked back into the store to rest for a minute. As he opened the door, something stopped him. There, he froze. His heart skipped a beat. His eyes opened wide. He looked around. No one was there. He slowly walked towards it. His legs shook. His lips parted as tears filled his eyes. He dropped to his knee, hands shaking. Thank you, Mommy, he whispered, looking at the picture. Thank you. Then, just like the day before, he sat down and began to eat, slowly at first, then faster, then desperately. Every bite brought tears to his eyes. The food tasted like home. It tasted like safety, like love. He was still eating, almost halfway done, when suddenly the door creaked open. He turned. Madame Sandra stood there, her eyes curled into a wicked, slow smile. Her eyes scanned the food, the spoon, the boy. Well, 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 she said, walking in. So this is where you've been hiding to eat. Patrick's heart dropped. The spoon fell from his hand. She folded her arms and moved closer. Where did you get this food? She asked in a cold voice. He couldn't speak. Answer me, she begged. He opened his mouth, trembling. I didn't steal. Mommy gave it to me. Which mommy? She asked with a mocking laugh. My real mommy, he whispered. She gave me food. Madam Sandra laughed loud and evil. You mean the one in that photo? So she left heaven to come cook rice and egg for you? The step siblings were already gathering by the door, laughing and pointing. See this one, Fola laughed. His ghost mommy is now a cook. Zeno grabbed her stomach, laughing so hard she bent down. But Madame Sandra wasn't laughing anymore. She picked up a stick near the door. If you don't tell me how or who gave you this food, I will beat you till you forget your name. I don't know, Patrick cried, covering his head. I didn't steal it, I swear. Mommy gives it to me. Let me see. Patrick cried out in pain as the stick landed on his back, his arm, his legs. He couldn't explain what he didn't understand. He was beaten until he couldn't cry anymore. That night, when everyone had eaten and gone to bed, Patrick lay curled up in the corner of the store. His body ached, his eyes were swollen, his stomach was empty again. And then something moved. A quiet breeze, a soft whisper. The room got cold for a second. Standing beside him was his mother's ghost. She looked at her son, tears in her eyes, her hand glowing faintly, her face full of sorrow. But Patrick couldn't see her. He only shivered, held his blanket tight, and cried into his knee. Mommy, please, he whispered in his sleep. Don't leave me again. The ghost of his mother watched him, her heart breaking. She reached out her hand, but it passed through him. She stood there in silence, watching, waiting. Even in death, a mother's love still speaks, still fights, still protects. Days passed after the second miracle meal appeared before Patrick in the little storeroom. That moment still lived in his heart like a hidden light. Days later, Patrick cried again as he ate, whispering, Thank you, Mommy, between mouthfuls. But just as he was about to finish, his stepmother, Madame Sandra, walked in with a deathly smirk on her face. She didn't say a word immediately, just stared at him with eyes full of hate. He quickly dropped the spoon, his hand shook, his small chest rose and fell quickly, afraid of the storm that was about to come. But something stopped her that evening. She looked down at the food, then at Patrick, and just hissed. She turned and walked away, slamming the door so hard that it made the doors fall from the old ceiling. Patrick's tiny body trembled. He didn't understand why she didn't beat him that day. He thought maybe, just maybe, something has changed. But he was wrong. That same night, far away in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, something strange happened. Patrick's father, Mr. Emeka, was fast asleep on the sofa in the parlor. Suddenly he began to shake. He turned left and right in his sleep. His forehead was wet with sweat. In his dream, he saw his late wife standing right in front of him, her eyes filled with sadness and quiet power. She wasn't smiling. She said to him clearly, Emeka, if you know you can't take care of my son, take him to my mother. I have been the one feeding him since. Don't wait for me to come for you. I am warning you. Emeka sat up immediately, gasping, breathing fast. His eyes were wide open. He looked around and was sweating like someone who ran under the sun. The room was dark. The TV light blinked. His heart pounded loudly. It felt so real, like she had been standing right there. He stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen, poured water in his mouth, and shook his head. Just a dream, he told himself, just stress. But it wasn't. Days passed. He didn't take Patrick to his late wife's mother. He didn't change anything. The boy still slept in the dirty storeroom. He still ate nothing unless the ghost of his mother provided. Madame Sandra was still cruel, giving her own children chicken and rice and leaving Patrick to lick his lips in hunger. His father, blind in guilt and fear, said nothing. One quiet night, something strange and powerful happened again. Patrick was fast asleep in the storeroom. His face was buried in his small arms. His lips were dry, his stomach was empty, but his heart was calm in sleep. Then, suddenly, he woke up with full and small feet touched the ground. His body rose, but something pulled by an invisible rope. His eyes were half open, sleepily confused, but his leg began to move. He walked slowly barefoot out of the storeroom. That night was silent. No one saw him. Not Madame Sandra, not his father, not his stepson. He walked out of the house into the darkness of the night, the moonlight covering his path like a mother's hand. But he was not alone. His mother's voice walked ahead of him, glowing faintly, peacefully, sad, strong. She didn't speak, she didn't look back, she only led the way, and her son followed like a sheep that trusted the voice of love. He didn't see her, but his spirit knew her. He so remembered her warmth. He walked for hours barefooted, tired, half asleep, but his legs didn't stop. He crossed a small bush path, passed two quiet streams, walked down a sandy road that led to the edge of the village. Dogs barked but didn't chase him. Cold blew but didn't freeze him. God and love carried him. Finally, around 3 a.m. in the morning, he arrived at a small clay house painted with old blue color. There were little flowers in front, and a lantern was still burning inside. It was the home of Mama Ebun, his grandmother, his late mother's mother. She heard a knock on the door again and again, soft like a feather falling. She woke up confused. Who is knocking by this time? She said to herself. She tied her wrapper quickly and opened the wooden door. There, standing weakly at the entrance, was her grandson, Patrick, barefoot, dusty, sleepy, and thin. Mama, she whispered, tears already falling from his eyes before he could say more. Mama even froze. She dropped to her knees and shouted, Jesus, eh? Jesus Christ! She held him close, crying so loud, and neighbors turned on their torchlight from afar. She placed her hand on his chest and cried harder. Who brought you here, Patrick? Who brought you here in the middle of the night? But the boy didn't know how to answer. He didn't even know how he got there. He just said softly, Mommy said I should come. Mama even wept and kissed his forehead again and again. She held him like his own baby, like a lost piece of her heart had returned. Somewhere under the old mango tree in front of the house stood the ghost of his mother, watching. A small smile spread across her face. Her work was done. Her child was saved. She returned back into the shadows and disappeared. When a mother speaks from the grave, even the living tremble. The morning after Patrick was led out of the house by his late mother's spirit and safely arrived at his grandmother's place, a strange thing happened. His father, Mr. Emeka, woke up feeling different. He sat up on the bed, looking around, and tried to call his wife, but no sound came out of his mouth. Patrick! Patrick! He tried to shout again, but nothing. He pressed his ear, shook his head, clapped loudly near his ears, but something around him was quite terribly quiet. His heart raced. He ran to the mirror, trying to scream, but no words came. His mouth opened, but silence followed. Madame Sandra was in the kitchen, boiling, and when she heard heavy footsteps, she turned, and her husband was standing there, face white and fear, sweating all over, tried to speak, but he couldn't. What is it? She asked. He pointed to his ears. He opened his mouth again. What's wrong with you? Talk now, she shouted. But he couldn't hear her, and he couldn't reply. He started crying. Madame Sandra dropped the spoon in his hand. People started to whisper, it is punishment, maybe it's something spiritual, maybe his late wife has a hand in this. But Madame Sandra didn't care. She stopped feeding his children. She became colder and more wicked by the day. She blamed everything on her husband's first son, Patrick. Even though the boy was no longer around, months passed. The man who once worked proudly with a smile now sat quietly in a corner of the house. No job anymore, no voice, no sound. He has also lost his job because of his condition. He couldn't attend meetings, couldn't work, couldn't function. One cold morning, without warning, Madame Sandra packed all her clothes and put them into a Ghana must-go bag. She pulled out her suitcase, gathered her jewelry, and got dressed in a fine gown. Her children, Zeno and Fola, watched her from the corridor. Where are you going, Mommy? Fola asked. She didn't answer. Are we following you? Zeno added. She turned sharply. No. Why? Fola asked again, fear in her voice. She snapped, because I am not your father's nurse. I didn't come to suffer. I'm not about to raise children I didn't beg God for. Let your father take care of you people. With that, she walked out of the house just like that. She left behind their two children. She had been a side chick to Patrick's father and had finally married him after his wife died. Her dumb and deaf husband and the chaos she had helped create, her heart turned to stone. The man sat by the door and cried silently. She tried to beg her to stay, but only tears and breath came out. His hands shook as he stretched them out towards her, but she didn't turn back. She left without looking back. Her children ran after her crying, but she didn't care. He was now left to raise the children alone, with no voice, no job, and no children. Far away in a peaceful compound surrounded by trees and love, Patrick was finally smiling again. He now lived with his grandmother, his mother's mother, who treated him like a treasure. She gave him food, washed his clothes, and told him stories at night about how wonderful his mother was. You look like her, she would say, touching his cheek gently. Strong, quiet, and full of life. Patrick was now going to school regularly. He played with cousins in the evening and even laughed again. His nightmare had stopped. He no longer cried to a cold wall, begged an old photo for food. He no longer worked for hours without a thank you. He no longer slept on a dusty storeroom floor. He was safe. One day, Mr. Emeka tried to visit to see Patrick, but the grandmother stood by the wooden gate and blocked him. You lost your voice because you refused to speak for your son, she said firmly. You lost your hearing because you refused to hear his pain. You left him in the hands of a cruel woman and now you want to see him. No. He fell to his knee crying. He tried to explain with hand sign, but the grandmother turned away. I warned you in that dream, a cold wind whispered behind him. He looked back. There was no one there, but he felt to the presence of his late wife, watching, guarding against his son, even in death. That night she appeared again in his dream, but this time she said nothing. She just stood there looking at him with eyes full of tears. Then she turned and walked away into the light. He woke up crying like a baby, but it was too late. He will never see his son again, and every year, on Patrick's birthday, he would walk to his mother's grave with a plate of rice, kneel beside it, and whisper,